Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You're always most welcome. Well, just still trying to decide the next steps to take with my mosquito crew. No problems, just trying to decide the best way to go about them. I've got to sort out these harnesses, and I mean he's almost done. He just needs a little bit of weathering just to tone down some of the slightly vivid colours, shall we say. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about those today. What I want to talk about today is Telford is fast approaching the scale model world IPMS National Championships. And that reminds me, I've got to get my membership renewed. They've just sent me a reminder. I've forgotten about it. But I wanted to talk really about what we can expect at Telford, or rather what we can't expect, and have a general chat. And I want to throw this open to everybody watching, really, but I'm interested in your opinions as much as my own, because this is one of those subjects that's I've got no monopoly of ideas, and many of you will probably have some very good ones, actually, especially on the other perhaps genres that I'm not so familiar with or interested in. So it's an open house, and the subject really is this: what are the kits that you actually want to see the manufacturers creating in the next 12 months? Because I'm going to talk about most of the major manufacturers here, the biggest ones, certainly from a European stroke British perspective. Maybe a little bit less about the Far Eastern manufacturers, with the exception of Tamiya, but there's a couple of problems. There's a couple of problems here. I think that we've had a bit of a hiatus in the industry for 2-3 years, well, since COVID really. The last couple of years since COVID, it's all gone a bit dead. Now, the industry had a real upturn during COVID, and a surge in popularity like hasn't been seen for 20-30 years at least. Now, unfortunately, it seems to me that upturn has sort of come to a bit of a halt. And I don't want to sort of sound the death knell of the model industry or model shops or anything like that, but I'm not seeing very positive news generally. There's a lot of model shops that are closing. I saw two just last week. Two are closing in the southwest of England, and they weren't that close together, but it's a sign of the times, I think. And we seem to have manufacturers producing, I think, the wrong things. Not the wrong things, but not producing enough new things that people are actually asking for. And they seem to be producing things that people are definitely not asking for. Now, one of the worst culprits, I'm afraid, I'm sorry, I can't avoid saying this, but one of the worst culprits is Airfix in the UK, owned by Hornby Hobbies. Now, they are going through quite a tough time at the moment, so I don't want to sort of put the boot in or anything like that or make things worse for them. But they are making some very bad choices, I think, and some going in the wrong direction in a number of areas. Now, Hornby Hobbies, they have got a debt of something like £14 million, and they made a £12 million loss in the last financial year, following on from a £5 million loss the previous year. Now, of course, a lot of that won't be Airfix, a lot of that will be Hornby Hobbies and the trains division, I think. Lots of us have seen this Hornby programme that was on TV, which was I didn't particularly enjoy the style of the programme. I think it was very overly train-centric, and I think that maybe the problem with Hornby as a business, it's probably overly train-centric, and they haven't diversified in a way which is helping them. I think that they are too governed by the trains, and they have not clearly. So when I make some criticisms of Airfix, they're tempered by a knowledge and understanding that they almost certainly haven't been given the finance and the free hand to go about tackling the market the way that I think they should be doing. And it's not just me. Judging by feedback, other people are talking to me all the time, and there is a certain amount of dismay at the moment about the direction that they seem to be heading in. Mainly because in the last 18 months, 2 years, their releases have been woeful, really. Woeful. There's been one or two good ones. They're not all bad. It's not that they're not producing a good product, but they're producing products people just don't want, and they're not asking for. And I don't know which voices they are listening to. Clearly the wrong voices about what to bring out next. And I've had many discussions with them in person and in emails, and my voice is clearly just totally ignored. But that's part of the problem. It's not me taking that personally. It makes no odds to me. We all have our own preferences. But when I see other people constantly making the same comments that I've made, without any prompting or input from me, and I see them commenting on things like Facebook, which I'm not even on, and it gets drawn to my attention later, saying, "Well, you're not alone. Look at this," and I see it again and again. And certain products that we're asking for, they just seem deliberately wanting to. It's almost like if I said it was spiteful, that would be I'm sure that would be completely over the top. But it's just not logical. There's some products that Airfix in particular could be producing, which would make them a lot of money and would keep selling. And instead of that, they are producing products that, well, of course, when they hype everything up, and they have one or two voices that we know about on YouTube who consistently hype up anything they produce, however woeful or dire or just the same old stuff in a new box. Or, I mean, at least they do, when they do a vintage classic, at least they're honest about it, unlike Revell. We'll get onto that in a minute. But they are constantly being asked for a number of kits and they just won't do them. And instead of that, they're coming up with kits like Ferret Scout Car, Gannet. I mean, they produced the Gannet last year, and I said at the time, and I've said since, I just shook my head and I thought, who wanted this? Yeah? Who persuaded you this was needed and would have legs to sell? And I've come from a sales and marketing background, so I do know about these things, trust me. And you've got to think about not just can you sell, is that going to increase your sales this year? You have to map out a rough idea of what the sales will be medium to long term. And of course they all tail off, but I suspect this is one of their products that's dropped off a cliff, not just tailed off, but almost jumped off the edge of the cliff. I can't believe they're selling many of those right now. And then this is when they get into this cycle of producing things that nobody really wants and then selling them off cheap. This is not going to make them any money. I don't understand the thinking, the rationale behind it at all. It is baffling. And I speak from a sales and marketing background. It's baffling. This is not a strategy for success. And if you look at what they've released in the last 18 months, we've had the Gannet. The only one that's been really... probably has got more legs in terms of sales, medium to long term, is the Seeking helicopter. I think that was very well received, and quite a lot of people seem to have, I didn't buy one, but I'm not typical, I don't think. I think quite a lot of people bought a Seeking, more than the Gannet anyway. And the Gannet they didn't even produce the airborne early warning radar Gannet either, which was baffling. They produced the version of the Gannet that nobody wanted. I just wonder what is going into those decision-making processes. Now, it sounds like I'm having a bashing Airfix session. It's not just Airfix either. Same at Tamiya, same at Revell. I'm baffled. I'm going to try and turn this into a positive. I'm going to have a bit of a moan, a bit of a rant. And then I'm going to try and turn it into positive, and I'm going to make suggestions which I think would be very positive items for these companies to actually listen carefully to and think about producing. Because I'm going to suggest things I think will sell and keep selling, and not just be this month's new release. I mean, when you look at going back to Airfix, if you're looking at what they've released recently, so we've had a 24 scale Spitfire that's just a variant of what they did a year earlier. We've had a Sabre, F86 Sabre, that's just a variant of what we had a year or so ago, and we've had an Ansem, which is just a variant of what we had a year ago. They're not new tool, not new designs, they're just variants of an existing kit. And that's not cutting the mustard. That's not got people excited. 10 years ago, you used to go to Telford in November, Scale Model World, and Airfix would announce something incredible every year. We had the Typhoon, we had the Mosquito, we had the Vulcan, and it went on for year after year. And it was a key moment at Telford, 10 o'clock Saturday morning, the big announcement, and it would always be something impressive. I was never disappointed. Now they've gone away from this, and for me that has actually robbed Telford of some of its magic, because this is the home team playing at Telford. This is their chance to shine, and they did shine, and it was brilliant. They did that Vulcan. What was the other one that they did that was very impressive? The Vulcan, Typhoon, the Wildcat. The Wildcat, same again. Brilliant, Now all that magic is gone. They don't do that anymore. They sort of have these I mean, last year we had this muted, rather botched announcement for the ME 76L ME410, which was a mess because somebody had already leaked out, and yeah, we know that one of the major, I'm not going to name them, but I'm very tempted to, one of the big retailers, and this is another area of a problem that they've got, one of the big retailers that they seem to be disproportionately supporting at the moment, foolishly allowed somebody to get their hands on it a month early and built it, and before they'd even announced the product, it was built. There was a build video. It's absolutely ridiculous. Complete loss of control, and clearly backing the wrong distributor, in my opinion. A company that for me is just a box seller. I wonder if you can guess what I'm talking about. Pile it high, sell it cheap, and they are getting preferential treatment over other model shops who are going bust. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with Airfix Hornby's selling direct into the market the way that they are doing either. I think this is not helping them, because the historical success of that business, the Airfix business in particular, and the Hornby trains, was selling it through model shops, and it was something that you could go and see on the high street and you had access to. But now they've moved away from that. Now they've gone to just 2 or 3 big distributors, and the rest are doing direct. This is killing the model shop in this country, I think. It's killing the model shop. This is turning into a bit of an anti-Hornby Airfix rant, which is not the intention actually, but I think they need to listen to what I'm saying, because I know I'm not alone. I've heard it from others, some people who are directly affected. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And I've seen, another big, well-known model shop that has its own forums and is very, very popular. They've now pulled out of holding stocks of a lot of these products, kits generally, because it's very hard to make a profit for them, I'm sure, and I can fully understand that. So I don't understand, if you're going to go direct to market, I don't think that that's the right way for Hornby to do it. I think that this is a mistake. We all saw that they pulled out of another mistake they made. Hobbycraft, the biggest hobby distributor shop in the UK, they pulled out of them, and they stopped supplying them for a while, and they moved it over to WH Smith. What a bizarre choice. What an absolutely bizarre choice. Why would you do that for any reason other than some short-term financial gain? That has completely backfired, and they're now back at Hobbycraft, I see. So there's some bad decisions are being made. On top of that, this particular company, they've got all this stuff, and this is coming back to the point in hand. I want to get off the ranting and get back to the positive. But it's not just them. It's not just them. But they've made a corporate decision, and it's probably Hornby rather than Airfix, in fairness. So this is not aimed at an individual, by the way. Let's just be clear. It's not a criticism of individuals. It's a corporate error is being made here. They're going down a blind alley, and they are cutting off a lot of their distributors, or making it very hard for them to operate in the way that they did in the past. And they seem to be favouring direct sales and going over the heads of their traditional route to market. And I think that that's a big mistake for them, because a lot of, like the Hobbycraft example I've just given, a lot of people, especially the youngsters coming into the hobby, the pipeline for them was probably always places like Hobbycraft, or Woolworths in the old days, of course, going back a few years there, FW Woolworth. As well as model shops, and now they sort of seem to have lost their way and misunderstood all this, think that they can do it direct, and the fact is that A, that's not making any money for them. That's absolutely obvious. You have to look at their financial performance to know that. B, it's upsetting, and we actually saw this, by the way, we saw them on the train side, upsetting some of their distributors on the train side, competing with some of them. And a big furore kicked off there, and that is actually the corporate direction that they've been going in. And you only had to watch that programme to see that when Simon Cole was there, they had a big falling out, didn't they, with one of their main distributors in Sheffield, I think it was. And that didn't go well, and it's not on this TT120 train design, new product they brought out, which I don't think has been terribly successful for them. It's certainly not increased their profits anyway. So none of it's been going in the right direction, and I think they need to have a complete rethink. Now, those of you that don't know, there's been their shares had a bit of a crash and went down as low. I think it was in the 16, 17p region about 12 months ago. And Mike Ashley, who we all know from Sports Direct, he bought a big chunk of shares. I think he's got, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's 20-25% of the shares. Quite a lot. Probably not a good thing. I'm not knocking any individuals here, but I think they're very vulnerable. And I think that my advice certainly to Airfix, and that they should advise their senior management, this needs to be sent up the chain of command. You need to get back to basics. You need to listen to your customers. One of the problems Airfix have at the moment is I don't think they understand who their customers are. They think their customers are teenagers, and they're not. They're not. They keep doing all this social media stuff. I've moaned about it in the past. I'm even more convinced when I did a rant about this nearly 18 months ago. And I'm even more convinced, I think I was far too polite about it then. I said that there was some questionable emissions coming out of them, asking questions like, on Facebook, things like, what do you want to be the next model? What models would you like to see us release? They get the answer again and again, and there's lots of answers, of course there are. But I'm pretty sure that the answer wasn't a Gannet. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a Gannet. And I'm pretty sure people weren't jumping up and down asking for variations on the Anson or the Sabre either, really. And they know this to be true. Search your feelings, you know this to be true, as Lord Vader said. Lord Vader's in the corner there, he's watching. He's watching! Yeah. I'm most displeased with your lack of progress. I don't know, it was the Emperor, wasn't it? But the fact is that they keep asking the question. It's like they don't like the answer. It's like they keep... It's a bit like keep asking the question until you get the answer that you want. Definitely a case of that, I think. And I'm going to give some answers that here's things that they should be producing, and long overdue now. And it isn't another bloody Spitfire, yeah? They're so locked into this, and they've got this idea in their head that if they keep producing, they keep showing shots of certain aircraft, like teaser shots, that they never get round to producing. And it's like, why are you putting your energies? And by the way, their employee costs have gone up, so they're obviously taking people on, especially on this social media thing. They seem to have a lot of younger members of their team. But why are you putting all this effort into something that seems to be generating no return? You're not actually... all you're doing is aggravating your existing customers. You must know your customer. Rule number one in selling, if you are, especially if you're in trouble in terms of overall business performance, sell more to your existing customers. That is the low-hanging fruit. That, you know, you have a revenue stream, you have a customer base that you can sell to, and if you have a loyal customer base, Airfix do have that, for example, why are you not focusing on that instead of trying to create a new market of teenagers that doesn't really exist? Because it doesn't seem that they're very interested, sadly, which is very sad. And I'm sure there's things that can be done to tackle that. But selling direct isn't the way to do it. This is exactly why you need the hobbycrafts of this world. You know, spontaneous sales, where youngsters go in with their parents at the weekend, they go into hobbycraft and they see something exciting from Airfix. That is the route to market. Not the way that they have been going, trying to go over the heads of everybody, as though they can create demand centrally with all this social media malarkey. It isn't working, is it? I don't think it is. And it's certainly, I've spoken to so many people that seem to get irritated with it now. And people have said to come up to me and said, you're right what you said about Airfix and all this social media and asking silly questions. What's the point of it all? What is the purpose of it? They get the answers, they don't like the answer because it's not the answer. So as though they're waiting for the answer, they've already decided to build something, manufacture a new kit. And they don't stop asking the question until somebody suggests that one and says, oh, your wish is our command. Finally, after asking the question dozens and dozens of times, somebody just happens to pop up with a random answer that happens to be the latest odd choice that they've made. Jeez, come on. I don't understand any of this. This is a ticket to... yeah, this business getting into serious problems. I think that business needs to basically listen to the answers it gets. I'm going to give them some answers here. It's not just them. They're the local team, the ones that we know personally, and you know, when they're on fire, they've produced some brilliant products. You know. I had some reservations about the new Spitfire, but overall, yes, a brilliant product. But still the wrong choice, you know. I've got on my list here, Hawker Hurricane 24 scale. That's what they should be doing now. They should be looking at, you know, A Battle of Britain Hurricane, I think, would be a great choice for them, amongst other things I've got on my list. But they seem to get into they seem to think they've got to keep re-releasing every variant, and then at the exclusion of everything else that people actually want. You've got to produce what the customer wants at the end of the day, and they're not doing that. They're not. Yeah, the Sea King. Okay, that was probably more due, more desired than the Gannet was. The Gannet and the Ferret. Come on, guys, what? And then this year they've done the Liberator. Hats off, yes. That's the one kit this year, and last year the Sea King. I think that got well received, and is a good choice. What about the rest though? Because a lot of the other things that they're releasing, they did this Bulldog biplane. Who was asking? I mean, they've done it. It's a nice kit from all accounts, but who was asking for that? Why are you putting your resources into things that nobody really wants? What is the sales? What is the potential sales for something like that Bulldog kit 1, 2, 3 years from now? This is what the questions that they should be asking themselves, I think. And this is what baffles me, because I don't see. I think they've got two problems. I think they've got people who are designing some of the kits that are not kit builders, which I think is kind of fatal, and leads to silly errors that I've talked about in the past, like on the Spitfire exhausts, for example. You've also got people that don't build or are interested in kits. They don't therefore understand what the sort of, where the pulse is of the industry, where the pulse of the customer is. What's the customer asking for? Well, you've only got to look at when they do a presentation and look at the comments at the side, and sometimes they do this thing where they, during the presentation in live chat, they'll throw up the question and say, what would you like to see us building next year? What kits would you like to see? And they then promptly ignore all the answers that people throw up. I've done that. I've watched that several times and not taken part at all, just watched. And one or two of these suggestions I'm going to make today always come up and always gets ignored. And it's not coming up from the same people. It's a variety of people. It's not from one individual. It's not like that at all. There are several options which they just seem implacably opposed to doing, and they don't explain why. And I think they need to explain why. If they're not going to do them, then tell us why. Is there an actual reason? Is it some legal reason? I don't know, but it's baffling, because they seem to be making choices that just things that nobody wants, and that in 2 or 3 years' time, literally nobody's going to be buying. I think they've got to stop doing that. Anyway, it's not. That was about Airfix, but some of that applies to Revell. Some of it applies to even to Tamiya, frankly. Let's talk about Tamiya, to coin somebody's phrase. Mine. Tamiya, they're another one, aren't they? I've got some notes here. Well, since we had, all they seem to be, they're doing the same thing. F-35 this, F-35 that, yeah? F-35 in different scales. We've had every variation of the F-35 pretty much now. Certainly in the 148 scale, and now they're heading that road as well with the 72nd scale. How many of those do they think they're going to sell? At least with them, the excellence of the product is so high, so outstanding. People buy it for the sort of novelty value almost of the fact that it's so beautifully engineered. So they can get away with it perhaps a little more than others can. But it's still a bit disappointing, We've had no 32nd scale World War II Warbird or anything like that now for 6, 7 years. What was the last one? Was it no? It's 10 years, isn't it? Since the Mosquito. Was that the last one? Yeah, the Mosquito I think was the last one. We had the Spitfire in 09. Mustang I think came out 2012. Then 13 I think it was. We had the Corsair. And 14 was the Mosquito. That's it, isn't it? I haven't missed any. Yeah, and then nothing, really. Very, very strange. Why? Why are Tamiya now pulling back? And they were doing so well every year. These kits came out and you thought, these are fantastic kits. I think that they should be. I'm going to read out what I think. Okay. So now, by all means disagree with me. But if you do disagree, say why. And there'll be lots of other options that I haven't even considered or thought of. So, excuse me, please shout up. Please don't keep it to yourself, because I think that any of these companies really need to be reading the chat, and they need to be reading the comments on this video and having a good read of it and having a good, proper consideration of it. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back to the beginning. I'll start with Airfix because, in fairness, I did start there. And I'm going to read out some fantastic recommendations that they should have done these already. I mean, one or two of these I'm going to read out. People have been screaming out for this during COVID, during the pandemic. When I remember I was on the Flory Forum when Phil Flory and his team, to their great credit, during the pandemic, I think it was summer 2020 in fact, they started doing these daily shows. They had about 3 of them a week, and they were very entertaining. Everybody was on lockdown, of course, and it was brilliant. Everybody was modelling at home. This is when the industry had this sudden surge and peak, certainly in recent years, which sadly hasn't lasted, because people were stuck at home and they needed to have a hobby. And of course this is great news for the manufacturers and anybody involved in the hobby. Now, the point I'm making is that the chat was always interesting. This is where I started to realise that a lot of things that I felt, other people felt the same way. And a number of these products I'm going to suggest were suggested by lots of other people without me making any comment at all. So I started to think, it's not just me then. And yet, so Airfix don't need to, keep putting silly posts on Facebook or other social media. Oh, what would you like us to do next year? Why don't you just look? You can still go back and see these shows and see the comments. The live chat, I'm sure you can replay the live chat from them from 2 or 3 years ago. The answers are already there. Why are they asking? Why do they keep asking if it's not just a fit when they get the right answer and say... It's like the old joke on Family Guy, isn't it, where Peter Griffin becomes a psychic medium. And he sort of asks a question, then as soon as somebody in the audience starts to answer it, he shouts over them because he realises what the answer is. He sort of shouts them down almost, shouts over them with the answer which he knows they were giving. This is kind of what they're doing, isn't it? Or it seems that way. Perhaps I'm being a bit harsh, I don't know, but come on, they need to explain why they're going down this road. They seem to be annoying a lot of people, not listening to the customer. Somebody even said to me, I made one comment, this is I think back in January, was it this year, was it last year, it was a while ago, and I don't know if it was somebody from Airfix, it probably wasn't. And I said, I made a comment then, and I said, why are they refusing to produce these kits that we keep asking for? And this person said, because you keep demanding it, that's why. Well, that's not a recipe for a successful business. If customers and people who are in, I'm a YouTuber obviously, but there's lots of us that have made the same comments. I don't think I'm suggesting anything that's particularly unusual here. If you're going to ignore it, if that was a stupid attitude, it's like, is that what you're saying, that Airfix are ignoring their customers deliberately? How bizarre. That is a recipe for, yes, a 12 million pound loss. And that's what they've got. So my advice to Airfix, and not just them, I say, we know a lot more about Airfix because they're local, but you need to start listening to your customers. If you listen to the customer and give them what they want, some of these things I'm going to suggest would sell today, tomorrow, next year and the year after. Not like the Gannet. No. Right, here we go then. This is not me with a beef about Airfix, but there is a feeling, there's a welling of feeling from a lot of people I know, and they make very disparaging comments now about Airfix, that they've lost their way. I mean, the last 18 months it's just been abysmal there. Their new releases have been abysmally low, not ambitious, and very, very disappointing. And this is creating a wave of bad feeling almost. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Certainly the comments that people have made to me, and I feel that way now as well. I've almost given up on them, really. It's like, when are they going to start and get it back on track? Go back to basics. Listen to what your customers are telling you. They're telling you in your own chat when you were doing the launch in January. All the answers were, why haven't you done a such and such? Why haven't you done this? But the problem is that I don't think the people who are reading those comments actually recognise that there is a pattern here. There's a big pattern. There's a common trend of people asking for the same things and you're ignoring them. Anyway, here we go. Sorry, I sound like I'm ranting against Airfix. It's not just them. But they are probably the biggest culprit at the moment. I urge them to cut this social media nonsense back. Yeah, it's all right promoting your products, but showing a random picture of an aircraft and making some silly comment, which they do frequently, It's just puerile, childish nonsense, and it's just annoying your customers. And this is the most fundamental point of all, which I didn't quite get to. Your customers are not teenagers. Your customers are people like me, aren't they? I mean, if you look on YouTube, I can see my YouTube channel. It's most popular with 45 to 65-year-olds. This is Airfix's biggest customer base, and they don't even seem to understand that. These are the people you need to listen to, not youngsters engaging with youngsters on YouTube, on Facebook, and on social media. It's not gonna do it for you. The people with the enthusiasm who build the models and who have the cash, it's my generation. Lots of us that are watching this show now are the people who buy your product. You need to listen to them, not just me. It's not about what I think. This is what I see this, and people come up to me. I get messages about it all the time, and I can't believe that they can be. It's almost like they've got blinkers on. They don't want to hear it, and it's like, no. You know, come on, guys. I think you need to have a rethink. Let's have a rethink about where you're going to be going. If this company is going to survive, Hornby obviously, Airfix have got no control over Hornby in terms of its survival because they're the parent company. But I respectfully suggest that the general thrust of what I'm saying, it applies to Hornby as well, trains, even though I have no great knowledge about trains myself. But I can see from some of the mood music that's in the industry and some of the comments online about trains, a lot of similar thoughts. They're not going into the market in the right way, and they're trying to act as if they're acting as if they're Tamiya. Tamiya could get away with what they do, selling over the heads of their distributors, but they actually don't. They're not doing it in quite the same way. I think it's very risky what they're doing. It's a bad strategy, and it's not working for them. It's not. And breathe. Right, that's all I have to say on that subject, apart from the recommendations I'm going to make to you. I'm going to suggest a few things here. Now, other people may have other suggestions. It doesn't mean that they're wrong or that I'm right. There'll be lots of things I haven't considered. Some of you are ship modelers, some of you like figures, lots of things that I perhaps don't do so much. And, you know, within those niches, it's like a niche within a niche, you can argue. But within those niches, again, if you don't understand your market and you're not actually delivering the product that the customers want to buy, then you're in the same problem, you know. And although the volumes might be lower than the aircraft and Arma, things like the big sellers, you know, still worth listening to. So those of you that are in these other niches, please speak up. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I think the more feedback about and the more ideas you can come up with for this video, in terms of comments, live chat and comments when you watched it later, please don't hold back. I think you give me your list of, say, your top 5 you'd like to see, the likes of Airfix, Revell, Eduard. We'll go through them, but don't hold back. Where you think there's an obvious gap in the market, and this is the key to this low-hanging fruit that we talk about in sales and marketing, the obvious wins. Those are the ones you should be going for, not producing gannets. Yeah? Jeez, can you tell I don't like the gannet? I've gone off on a right rant here. But it's not personal. I want this, Airfix in particular, I want you to be successful, and you were doing so well sort of 7-8 years ago, and it seems to Hornby, it's not going in the right direction. We all know this is true. Look at the numbers. You go and look at the financial results and you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, enough of that. I'm not a market financial guru, but I know what sells, and I know that we have some gaps in the market, things that are obvious, kits that need updating, and I'm going to name a couple of them here. I'm going to give my reasons as well. So Airfix first, and then we'll do Revell, Eduard, ICM, Arma, Tamiya, Qatari and Zuki, Mura. It's not an exhaustive list though. This is not me. Nobody's going to say, God, that's genius, because a lot of this is just common sense really. It's basic stuff. And you'll come up with other, in some cases, better suggestions even than me, I'm sure of it. So don't hold back. Anyway, here's my 2 penneth, as we say, 5 cents, as you say in the States. Right, Airfix first of all. The number one, which is really irritating a lot of people, and I am one of them, and I can name probably 14 or 15 people, which are, well, on camera, but all feel exactly the same on this one, and I've seen it. This has actually been named again and again and again in comments, and it is the Sepakat Jaguar Jet Strike Attack aircraft. GR1 or GR3. Now they have this already from the 1990s, 1994 I think it dates back to, and it was a mould they've shared with Heller and with Revell. The same mould has been shared around. Not a great kit. I've built it, don't like it. Awful really. Not absolutely tragic, but not very nice. Completely out of date, and this kit is begging to be updated. You know, with someone like Paramjit, didn't he? He designed the Buccaneer. Get Paramjit onto that. That's a perfect project for him. There are Jaguars galore at RAF Cosford at the museum. I think they've got something like 40 of them there. The old Coltishall Jaguars are all stored there. There's no lack of research material. I'm sure that the museum would allow you to look at those. No problem. You could do multiple versions. You could do the GR1, GR3. You could do the T2. Sorry, the training version 2-seater. And they've got them all at Cosford there. Abundance of research material. Easy for me to go there and spend time researching it. And that kit is probably the one that gets shouted out the most and just gets completely ignored, and I just don't understand it anymore. It's gone on for far too long. In 2020, 4 years ago, this was being screamed out for. During those shows I mentioned, it kept on coming up all the time. Not from me, from other people. And I kept thinking, yeah, there's another one. That I felt like doing a ticks on the wall, you know, every time somebody shouts out Jaguar. Now, they've also got the 72nd scale one, which is equally in need of updating, more in need, because that tooling dates back to 1970. Now I know that there's the Italeri have got the it is Italeri, isn't it? Italeri have got the more modern one, yeah, which I think is about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. A bit more modern, but it's not that great either. But the 48 scale should be the priority. I think you'll if you listen to me and just do it, because you're going to sell those. If you get do the different variants as well, maybe do one kit with multiple variants within the kit, I think that would be a good seller, rather than make it too complicated and have to keep going back to the market with new artwork. Why don't you just do a Jaguar that gives you the option to do 2 or 3 variants, different loadouts, and then charge what you need to charge. Charge 75 quid for it, fine. Maybe even slightly more, maybe 80 quid. But I think that will sell like hotcakes, and if you do it well, like you normally do, Airfix Buccaneer for example, that's going to keep selling because it's so long overdue, and such a bit of a gap in the market for a decent one. There just isn't a decent one. It's going to sell. It's going to keep selling. It'll sell in year 2, year 3. I'm not saying it'll sell at the same rate. As I say, it tails off, but not like some of these others have tailed off. It's going to keep selling. The second one, and it's just equally as obvious really, and that is the Tornado. Now, of course, we've got the Tornado GR4. Revell have got their 48 scale one, but it's not great really. It's okay. It's okay, but for me, I think if I was working at Hornby stroke Airfix, I would suggest to you to go for 72nd scale and retool the 72nd scale, which again is long overdue. And the 72nd scale one, Revell do, it's not great. It's just not great. And you know, you could do GR4 72nd scale, the final one. It'll sell and it'll keep selling. You can do a German version. You know, you can play around with that and sell it into different markets, not just the UK. Italy will buy them. You know, you can get the Germans buying the kit. It'll sell. It'll sell. Again, a no-brainer. So I'd like to see a 48 scale, but okay, if they said 72nd scale only, I could understand that. But they need a new Tornado. It's out of service now, so we've had this excuse in the past. They say, oh no, I think it's a myth. Airfix say, oh no, allegedly. They say, well, you can't have that because it's in service and we'll never do anything that's in service. It's our agreement with the MOD. Don't know if there's any truth in this at all. Probably not. So that excuse doesn't even hold water for that one, does it? And then the third, I've actually got 6 suggestions here. The third one, which is an absolute no-brainer, is again the Eurofighter Typhoon. Now that is in service, but frankly I don't care. It doesn't stop anybody else doing one, does it? You know, you've had the Revell one, which is not great. It's not great. We need a new top of the range Typhoon. You know, someone like Matt Whiting or again Paramjit would do a fantastic job, no question. No question, and it's needed in the market. Yeah, I actually bought the Revell one, and lots of issues with the intakes, and it's not a good kit really at all. And I think there's this. I mentioned Revell in the context of Airfix. I think there's a fear there. I think there's been a long-standing fear of stepping on each other's toes. But the fact is, all you have to do to assess whether you're going to be able to make a successful sale of a product, you've just got to assess whether it's going to sell based on what is the competition. Is the competition good? The fact that they have the product doesn't mean it's selling, because they've done a poor job of it. And with some of these Revell kits, that's very much the case. We know that with quite a few of theirs, like the Harrier, you know, the 32nd scale Harrier. Terrible, horrible kit. And they keep reissuing that and saying 50 years of the Harrier, and everybody say, oh look, new artwork, it must be a new kit. No, it's not a new kit, it's 1970. Oof. Ouch. So there's three. Those three that I have just suggested would sell and keep on selling. They would have a good, I think the word they use sometimes is buoyancy in sales, isn't it? A good buoyancy. It would keep afloat and keep selling in a healthy way for a long term. Then we come to the next sort of, not quite as obvious, but ones that, again, Airfix, given their quality of their design team and the moulding in terms of the tooling, would really do well to consider the next three. And this is the last three for Airfix. And the first one is the Sea Harrier FRS1. Now people say, oh no, it's kinetic. Yeah, and it's rubbish. It's not a great Harrier at all. If Airfix did that, you know, they would clean up. They could do that, do it at 32nd scale. No, it's not that scale, but certainly at 48th scale, you know, if they did a good job of that, nobody's going to buy the kinetic anymore, frankly. It kind of ends the product, draws a line over it. They could close the book on FRS1 Sea Harriers from the Falklands War, and Airfix is the natural company to be making that product, I think, not kinetic. And then I alluded to it a little bit earlier on the more ambitious stuff. You people that are watching this vid, the viewers and subscribers, you'll have your own views and you'll probably come up with some good suggestions. I know you will. Things I've overlooked or not considered perhaps, but I think a 24 scale Hurricane, a really nice one, that's a kit that needs retooling and update. Battle of Britain Hurricane, you know, perhaps a Stamford Tuck Hurricane, that would be really nice. And it would sell, and it would just keep selling, because you know the existing tooling is nasty, and Airfix keep on reissuing these old kits, and they're all £75 to £95, and they're not great. You know, they did that with the Harrier. Yeah, oh, horrible. Last advice for Airfix, and this is, I say there's lots of other suggestions. I'm going to let other people fill in the blanks that I'm leaving. But one thing that did occur to me when I was looking at one of the model shows, I think it was back in Nantwich in February of this year, and I forgot the name of the company. Is it Accurate Miniatures? They do one of these in resin, was it? I think this is a prime target for Airfix. 35th scale Arma kit, a Cold War stalwart personnel carrier stroke truck, the six-wheeler truck. I'm sure it's got a proper name or title, hasn't it? But you know the one I'm talking about, the one that's got the all-wheel steering, I think, hasn't it? Can go into deep water, they float, they can go across rivers and all this kind of thing. They're a multi-purpose vehicle. Now that, I think, would be a perfect fit for Airfix to do. And I'm baffled, you know, they were in a Ferret scout car, you know, something that's never been in a war, and really is most well known for being in Berlin and being in Northern Ireland, and that's about it. Now the Stalwart was used all across NATO, you know, they sold them into other countries, I think, didn't they? And it was certainly something you would always see the British Army using on Salisbury Plain and in Germany. That would be a popular seller, I think. If they did a nice Stalwart armoured truck, I think that would sound really well for you. I think you should consider that. So that's my advice to Airfix. I've probably said enough about them. I've probably burnt my boats with them, oh dear. Well, on their Christmas list. But I'm trying to help you, really. I genuinely want them to do well. And I'm just not enjoying... their output is just depressingly poor, I think. not as in bad, but just not enough of it. It's not exciting enough. It's not ambitious enough. And if you've got limited resources, that's fine. I understand your hands might be tied. All the more reason to focus more carefully on what you are actually going to put your money and your investment into. Not Gannets, yeah, not Gannets. That was probably the worst choice for a number of years for something that they've come up with as a big release. You know, I just didn't understand the logic behind that. And I will not be convinced by you that that's a big seller for them anymore. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Now it's Revell's turn to have a bit of a beating. I mean, a lot of the things I've said about Airfix applies to them. I mean, they're worse in a way. I don't think they've been performing too well financially. They're owned by this consortium, Quantum Capital, I believe they're called, in Germany. Haven't been exciting us. I've been doing some of the same mistakes as Airfix, but worse, with a bit less honesty than Airfix. And I'm talking about reissuing these old kits like the Matchbox kits, pretending that they're new, first diorama, you know, including things like the little Puma armoured car that I showed a few weeks ago. I've actually got, just grab this because it's quite pertinent for what I'm talking about. Here is, these are the original Matchbox figures. See the little figures there? I'll zoom you in for this, because this is very, very germane to what we are talking about with Revell. So they have got the first diorama kits, the little Arma car, the Puma in this case, and we've got our German soldiers. Well, on the new, that they bought the moulds, obviously from what was left of the Matchbox company from its Macau days, long after Lesney sadly had gone out of business in '82. And they bought these moulds, but they've modified the moulds and they've taken out these figures. You don't get the figures anymore. You don't get them. Now you got them on, I bought the T-34 tank and you still had the figure in that, but I believe they've now removed them. I think what they've done, they've doctored all of the moulds and taken the figures out. Why would you do that? I don't understand that either, because they were producing them, so it's not like it's a legal thing. I can't see that's true. And of course they're rebadging stuff like I mentioned, the 32nd scale Harrier GR1, which is just horrible, and they've got no business not making it clear that that's an old kit, because it should be called classic or vintage or ancient. Ancient Fine would be another good logo for them. Sorry. Anyway, try to be positive now. Now don't forget, those of you that don't know, they've got Luke Slaney Hewitt, the Airfix researcher, joined Revell a few months back. So I'm hoping that they might take on board some new ideas. I mean, who knows, maybe they'll be the one that comes up with the Jaguar. I think I'd rather have Airfix do it now, I've got to be honest. I'd have more faith in the quality. It's nothing to do with Luke's research, I'm talking about the quality of the actual product now. I think I'd rather see someone like Paranjit tackling that than Revell. But anyway, I've got 3 suggestions here. Kind of not sort of automatic, not quite as instant successes as perhaps the Airfix ones I've suggested, but see what you think. I've suggested that, and this has got a crossover with Airfix. I mentioned Airfix had got the old Jaguar, and both Revell and Heller had sharing of the mould. Well, Revell didn't share the mould on this particular model, but Heller did, and that was the 1/72nd scale Concorde supersonic airliner. But it's not great. It's not great. It's got a lot of issues in that model. It's fairly horrible, to be honest. And I think that would be a good one for Revell to consider to do. Completely new tool on. If our friends at this Quantum, you know, Capital Partners, they are, you know, basically a finance company, aren't they? They're investment bankers types. But if it depends on how much they're prepared to spend, or if they're prepared to spend anything, I suppose. But if they're going to do a new tool, I think that could be really nice, because they did the SR-71 Blackbird, didn't they? So they could do something like this. They really could. Another one that I thought that might be suitable for them would be a 72nd scale Sterling bomber for Revell. I think that, you know, given that Airfix don't seem to be going down that road, they did Liberator, but Airfix are constantly seeming to look at the American market a bit more, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a similar problem that we've got in Revell, but I think that'd be quite a nice project something that Luke could be working on. And then lastly, and this sort of came to me in probably a drunken haze, and that would be a 1/32 scale P38 Lightning. Now obviously if Tamiya did something like that, it would cost an absolute fortune. We've all seen what the Mosquito costs, like over 180 quid. But if Revell did it, it could be under £100, I think. Now I know that they had this tragedy with the F18, the F18E, the Super Hornet, where it's £100. I think that lesson has been learned though, don't you? I hope so. It's just an idea. I'm sure that on the Revell front you'll have other ideas, you'll have other suggestions, so please chuck them out. And I'm sure that people are going to come up with things and I'm going to think, why didn't I think of that? And there's bound to be one or two like that, I'm sure. This is just a straw poll of a few ideas I had. Anyway, we're going to move on now. Another company that I don't always get on too well with, Eduard. Now, Eduard fundamentally produce really nice kits. I just have had issues. I've not really had a particularly good build experience with any of the ones I've tried. That doesn't mean that they haven't got some that I haven't tried that are good. And everybody seems to be quite defensive of Eduard sometimes, a bit too much, I think, especially if they're in Europe. But they have got great moulding quality, and I think that they should maybe open their mind a bit more. There's a bit too many BF109s and Mustangs and things like that coming out, and Spitfires really. I'd like to see them do something a bit different. I'd like to see them, here's two suggestions for you, both in 48 scale, so they won't be cheap. How about a Brewster Buffalo? Because it's such a small aircraft, you know. That would look quite good in 48 scale, I think, and I think they do a nice job of that. That's one suggestion. Perhaps these are a bit too British, but anyway, bear with me. The second suggestion is a 48 scale Westland Whirlwind. Yeah, not the helicopter, I'm talking about the twin-engined fighter bomber. I think in 48 scale, I think they produce a really nice kit. If only they could produce some sensible decals to go with it, it would be alright, wouldn't we? Sorry, I couldn't resist that. Anyway, moving on. My friends at ICM over in the Ukraine actually had their catalogue. We're still waiting for their Black Hawk helicopter. I think it's coming probably for Christmas, that one. But I was thinking, what would I like to see from them next year? And I might drop them a line to this effect. Now, they produced some absolute cracking stuff this year, haven't they? You know, there's been some really interesting and nice kits coming out. Not least of which was that Marauder, which I think they did a brilliant job with. How about then, because they're pretty good at 48 scale, how about a 48 scale Ju-87 Stuka? I think they do a really nice one, they would. And there's plenty of them, I think, still around in Ukraine, because a lot of their German subjects are based on the fact that a lot of stuff got left there after World War II. So one I suggested was that. The next one, bit bigger. How about a 48 scale BF 110? Let's just submit BF 110, Battle of Britain style, you know. Oh, that big. You can have a Battle of Britain one. You could have an Eastern Front one because again they served in Ukraine. You know, I think those would be two good choices, and they'd probably be able to get the research done without too much trouble. Well, apart from the obvious trouble of being in the middle of a war, unfortunately. But I think they might have some reference material locally that would help them. I mean, they wouldn't have to travel too much. I think that they do a beautiful job of both those. So that was the two that came to my mind. And then moving on next door, Arma Hobby in Poland. Arma Hobby have produced some really nice kits, haven't they? They produced that Mustang, they produced the Hurricane, beautiful one. Not quite so beautiful on the Era Cobra because there's been some talk about them changing their injection moulder. I'm not sure what's going on there. But let's hope they can get back to that quality that we've seen. And two that came to my mind, this is in 72nd scale, and I thought they'd do a beautiful 72nd scale Ju-87 Stuka. And again, Poland, you know, there's probably, I'm sure they've got them in our museums there. And I think at 72nd scale, I think they'd do that. Yeah, that'd be really nice. And again, it would keep to their format with the smallish box and all that stuff. I think they do it really well. I mean, they could do it in 48th. I don't mind whether ICM or Arma did it. Either way, I think either of those two companies would be a good choice to produce something like that. And then Arma again, a 48 scale BF109E, Battle of Britain BF109E, Emil. I think they do a nice 48 scale one, really nice. something that's, you know, bang up to date, nice crisp one. So there we go. So now on to Tamiya. Now, Tamiya. Here's a couple which I think I'm not just throwing ideas out randomly here. I'm trying to think about the things they seem comfortable with. Now, that doesn't mean we should accept just their comfort zone, but I'm trying to work within the types of kits that they normally go for. So see what you think about this. Given what I said earlier about warbirds and the lack of them, we haven't had anything from them. Well, there's two that come to mind that they haven't done, which I think would be an obvious choice for them. And that would be, sorry, the one I've just remembered, the one I did forget was their 0 in 32nd scale, didn't I? I forgot that. That came out about 2011, I think. That was the one I couldn't remember. So how about, to go with that, two options here, both American, a P40 Warhawk in 32nd scale. Now wouldn't that make sense for Tamiya? Alternatively, a Thunderbolt P47. Again, it's kind of a no-brainer, yeah, and I know people say, oh, is it trouble to do one and all this, and it's like, forget about that, forget about that. We're talking premium here. I think that they could do a P47, you know, for under 150 quid, and a Warhawk, probably £130, something like that, up to the standard that we've come used to. And I think that would really work for them. I think that would be in keeping with their other sort of style of kits. Sell to lots of markets. You know, the Warhawk would sell in China because you could have the Flying Tigers. Yeah. Sell in the UK because we had them as well. Sell in the States. You know, and the French had them, I think, didn't they? Did they? I think the French had them as well. So that would sell to quite a few different markets. I think that would make a lot of sense for them. And then finally, I moaned a little bit about all the F-35s because I think it's very repetitive. Why haven't they done? Why didn't they do a Raptor in 48 scale, F-22? I'd like to see that. I know it's not my favourite aircraft, but again, it would make perfect sense for them to do a Raptor in 48 scale. £100 mark, you know, like we've seen before. No brainer, really. And then just a couple of manufacturers. I didn't do every manufacturer, but the ones that sort of shouted loud in my mind. The next one is Qatari, and I thought, why on earth? And I know you're all going to shout at me. They're doing one, but it's a different model. 132nd scale BF-109E, Emil, Battle of Britain. You know, they're doing the Spitfires. Why don't they do a BF-109E? It would sell like hotcakes, Qatari, one of those. And instead they're going to do this K4, is it? 109 K4? I don't think that's a good choice for them. I don't think that was the right model to choose of 109. Yes, they'll sell because of the quality, like Tamiya, they'll sell a lot of them, but they're not going to sell as many as they would have done. A Battle of Britain, people can identify with that, and they know it was a big factor in the Battle of Britain, and I think it's got much more of a reputation, a household name, than this K4 that they're going for. Anyway, that's my 5 cents. Finally, Zuki Mura, and again, bear in mind the sort of things that they've done historically. And I was racking my brains and I was thinking, what could they do in 32nd scale? Because they do these lovely warbirds, don't they? You know, and I was talking, wasn't I? I've said this previously when I did the reviews last year. You know, I mentioned Tamiya not doing these warbirds. This opened the door, didn't it, for the 109 and the FW190 for Zuki Mura, and they walked straight through the door and made a ton of money out of them, you know. They've sold really well, those kits have, especially the 190, I think. So, what would be their next move? I think a 32nd scale Stuka Ju-87. I think that would be brilliant because they've done, you know, the Dornier 335. Yeah, they do it with all the ribs, and it would be really impressive. I think a nice Stuka from them would be absolutely fantastic. New tool, you know, all the bells and whistles and the engine detail and everything. All the ribs will be in it. It'd be absolutely amazing. And then, finally, my final thought for them to do would be a Messerschmitt 262. Jet Power Messerschmitt 262 Schwalbe. I think, again, that would be really nice with all the detail and the jet engines and all the ribs, you know, and the gun bay. It'd be really nice, that. I think that would work very well. Very similar or in keeping with some of the other stuff that they've done. They did the Horton, of course. It's And it's not just another 262. It would be different, wouldn't it? It would have a different appeal, I think, as to the quality. So there's a few thoughts. And I know I sort of started to sound like I was having a right bash at Airfix, and I kind of was. I didn't want to, but there are things with Airfix that are starting to baffle people. But it's not just them. Tamiya, you know, they haven't invested. Very little new kits coming out, a bit like Airfix in the last couple of years. I don't really understand it. I can understand them, you know, given that they had this sales wave of success during the COVID period of the lockdowns, so 2021 and 22, and that it has obviously calmed off now. Yes, but they've been too cautious even during that period, Tamiya. I mean, they weren't producing anything new at all at that point. One thing I have written next to their name here, by the way, is Formula One cars. The cars and the bikes they produce are just heavenly, absolutely beautiful models. And we've not had any Formula One cars. Now, this isn't really to do with Tamiya, unfortunately. It's more a licensing issue with Formula One, so I blame them. And I don't understand how this is good for Formula One to not have model kits of the latest cars produced by someone of that quality. Makes no sense to me at all. It really doesn't. And we haven't had one since, was it 2019, I think, the last one? Was it the Ferrari? And since then there's been no new licensing issued, and it hurts everybody. It's not good for Tamiya, it's not good for Formula One, you know, and yet you see sort of other iterations of some of these products, perhaps in resin, and is it Studio 21? I can't remember now. The company that does a lot of these Formula One cars, they seem to get round the licensing. I don't know how, but it's not good for anybody. There's money to be made. People want these products. It's what I said about Airfix at the beginning. People want the products, and people will pay for things that they desire. People will always pay for things they desire. You know, I didn't need a watch that cost what this cost. Any old watch would do, but I desired it. I'm not going to say how much it cost. It's scary, quite a lot of money. But it's like anything. If you have a nice car, people desire things and will pay for the quality, for the ultimate in quality. If you produce a good enough product, it has its own desirability. It has its own pull, and it will create the sale because people simply want to have the product. And that's the case of some of these Formula One cars, are certainly on Tamiya's side. And that's true of a lot of these things I've discussed today, to be honest. And apologies if anybody, please don't take offence at anything I've said. It's not aimed at any individual. Certainly the comments about Hornby, that's clearly a very complicated situation there, I'm sure. But they need to take on board what I've said, because my views are not untypical at all, not from what I've heard. I feel that I'm now voicing them more, but they've been there for 2 or 3 years, and they just don't seem to be grabbing that low-hanging fruit. They're not seizing the opportunities, as are some of these other guys like Tamiya, not seizing the opportunity of the obvious sale, you know. And Tamiya, I mentioned, just to prove it's not anti-Airfix at all, Tamiya blew it, didn't they? They you know, Zuki Mura with that FW 190 and the BF 109, the Eric Hartmann one, you know. Crazy. It was just there for the taking, and they just haven't bothered. And you can see Zuki Mura have obviously done the research and thought, well, blow you, we'll do it. And it's helping their business because Tamiya are being too conservative with the little c. And I think that's don't be conservative when there's obvious open goal. Don't be frightened to kick the ball into the goal. This is basic sales and marketing. Understand what product is going to be a winner. It's not going to be a Gannet. No, I'm repeating myself, but I think that's a classic example of a real Homer Simpson moment for me. I looked at it, oh no, are you serious? Really? What are you doing? Come on. It's not just them though, you know. You could argue this year we've had Mini Art and we've had Ryefield model with their Pumas, both coming out within about 3 weeks of each other. That was a bit of a Homer Simpson moment as well, to be honest, wasn't it? Because, you know, did the world need 2 of those? And there's not that much difference between them. Somebody actually, was having a go at me. Well, not personally, but he was sort of saying, I've got the mini art one, and I think I've got no flash. I don't know what you're talking about. Unfortunately, he saw the second video I did, which didn't really show it in as much detail. So I just referred him back to the first video, where you can plainly see some fairly nasty flash on that kit from mini art. And I said, well, there's only a few things that are different between the two kits anyway, and the price is not one of them. That's very different. And I said that I still stand by the fact I think that the Riffield is the better product for the money. But sorry, the point I was making really was the fact that they both came out at the same time. So it is frustrating that could happen. That could have happened with this Tamiya Zuki Mura situation, but there's not much danger of that when Tamiya don't seem to be wanting to bother, you know. Seem to have given up on the Warbirds. I don't understand it. As I said, it's there for the taking. Yeah, it's like, was it Brad Pitt in Troy when he's Achilles and they arrive at the beach of Troy and he said, "Destiny is awaiting you. It's there for the taking. Take it. It's yours." Yeah, quote from Troy. That's what it's like for Airfix with the Jaguar and the Tornado and the Eurofighter, and that's what it's like for Tamiya with some of these Warbirds. It's there for the taking. You just walk through the door and do it. You're going to sell them. Yeah, you will have the success. But it's like they're trying to... I don't know what they're trying to do. I'm not even going to try and guess. We've obviously got some issues with licensing, as I said, with Formula 1 cars and Tamiya, but some of these things are unfathomable, it seems to me. It's not that they're not doing big, bold ventures, because that's expensive. We all understand that. It's the choices they are making are absurd choices, some of them. Really crazy ones, you know? I don't know. I just look at some of the releases and I think, why? Why have you done that, you know? I mean, we mentioned ICM. They've got some nice, interesting stuff coming up next year. We've got the Tahi Skycrane helicopter, but in 72nd scale. That's going to be much more manageable. I think that's going to be a better seller than the big ones being. And the big one's a lovely kit, the 48 scale kit. And they've also got this wonderful Henschel 129B ground attack aircraft coming as well. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most, I think. That's 48 scale. That's going to be another like the Marauder, I think. So you can see that, you know, these guys are quite good at coming up with interesting subjects. And again, that Henschel is probably something that they've got. It's probably in a museum, or they've got reference material from some that have been left in Ukraine, I suspect. They clearly have an aircraft there that they're using to do all the measurements for, and that's going to be something exciting to look forward to. So there we go. So I'm sorry if I came across as a bit negative at the beginning. I wasn't trying to, but I think that Airfix in particular, and others, as I mentioned, do need to rethink their strategy. And I think that your first priority is identify who your customers are, and it's not kids, it's us, people with money. That's basically free expendable income, basically, and it's people who are probably going to make the models. Well, maybe not me then. Hey, that's enough of that. You know, I'm making a mosquito. What do you mean? I can almost hear you all thinking it there. But the fact is that we are the ones more likely to build it than a teenager is. A lot of these kits. I have no problem with Airfix appealing to youngsters with these starter sets. That is really logical. This is where they have this mismatch. That they're doing really well. I think they are doing it really well. They're coming in with these starter sets. They've got these shadow stands. Yeah, we need more of that. We need more stands. That's something else I need to add into this at the end of this video. Rethink your stands policy. 72nd scale, everything should have a stand. Aircraft, yeah, definitely. I think 48 scale should also have a stand. We've got that with the F-35 from Tamiya, for example, haven't we? F-35B. We need pilot figures. Pilot figures. Well, you only got to look at me at the start of this video, you know. Pilot figures. Are you telling me that that Airfix can't do those? Tamiya can, yeah. People want them. Look at the way that, you know, people have seen some of these that are working on. They say, oh, they look really nice. It's going to look great, you know. And it's just it animates the scene of the aircraft. It makes it a real sort of a little story in miniature, in a way that just I'm sick of it. And it's not. I'm not just talking to Airfix. I'm talking to the whole industry, really, apart from Tamiya. I'm not the only one that's just sick of this. I've seen all the comments that come under my videos that people make afterwards when I talked about it recently. I showed the stands and I was talking about displaying your models. Why can't we have pilots? What is so difficult that you can't make that a little project for the future? I've said it before, we want stands, we want pilots, and we want dioramas on the small scale Arma. Those things will help sell your product and lift the interest and the desirability factor a lot. Instead of that, we seem to have a race to the bottom with a lot of these manufacturers where they're all just trying to do it as cheaply as possible. In some cases, board a model, can't even be bothered to do the instructions properly, give you, what the paint colour call-outs are. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm completely boycotting board model, I'm afraid. I'm not interested. I know they've got this HE111 high and cool coming out. I'll certainly review it, but I'm not going to spend my money on anything like that when I need to know what the colours are. And I don't want to spend 3 years researching it. It's just stupid. They can do that once, and then they can spread that information in the instructions to everybody. I know this is an old rant I'm on now, but it's the same old thing, really. These manufacturers are not grasping. They're obsessed with short-term thinking, I think, and they're not grasping what makes their product desirable and not very desirable. And I say board a model, they're just dead to me now. I just can't be bothered with them, really. I don't mind reviewing their stuff, but I'm not going to go out and buy an aircraft from Border. That's very unlikely because I just think that they're absurd, and I just don't like it. I think it's to be shunned. And I think we need to vote with our feet and make these manufacturers realise that that's just not acceptable. If they can't be bothered to do the job properly, we can't be bothered to buy the product. So that's the way it's going to be as far as I'm concerned. And they're not particularly cheap either. It's not like you're getting 15-20% off because they didn't do any instructions properly. No, it's not particularly competitive. There's no advantage to it. The only advantage is to them. So we're not having that. Anyway, enough of my ranting. I'll be at Telford. I don't know yet which day. I was going to go on Saturday, but it may not be possible. It might actually be Sunday now. I'm not sure. But perhaps I'll do a little message and let people know at the time. So if you're around, you'll see me wandering around. Last year I didn't actually wear this gear because, contrary to what many of you think, I don't wear this 24/7. Some very rude person said, "Ew," this is about 2 weeks ago. "Ew, that jacket must absolutely stink. Do you ever wear anything else?" Well, the truth is, apart from when I shoot YouTube, I never wear this jacket. I've got another one that's just a different colour, and I never wear that one at all. I think that appeared when the King's birthday last year. That's the only time I wore it. I actually cut the tags off. It was brand new. So whether I'll wear this just so people can recognise me, or it depends on how cold it is. If it's really cold and miserable, I'll probably be in a blue coat or something, or something a bit warmer. I'm sure people will spot me though, because unlike last year, I haven't got the beard. Last year I had this really big beard and I think people didn't recognise me. I got these odd glances from people as though they thought, "Is that him?" But by all means, come and say hello if you see me at Telford. Any suggestions you've got, nice ones please. Any suggestions you've got for the channel, or things you'd like to see, or things you'd like me to talk about, by all means come and share them with me. And I hope to see as many of you as possible at Telford. And who knows, wouldn't it be cool if we got to Telford and Airfix announced they're going to do a 48 scale Jaguar? It'd be like party time. You'd probably see me drunk with a bottle of wine and slurping away with the Airfix team. But it's probably not going to happen. We can live in hope though, can't we? We can always live in hope. You never know. Anyway, if the Airfix team are watching, there you go. Set you a challenge there. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you thought it was interesting. Please let me know your thoughts though, because it's very important. This is just a few ideas, but bear in mind when you make suggestions like I've tried to do, certain manufacturers, they kind of err towards certain styles of models and certain scales of models. So it's no good just thinking of a random scale and saying, I want Tamiya to do, a 24 scale Mustang, for example, because they're probably not going to do that. It's not their scale. Likewise, Airfix with a 32nd scale. So just have a think about that and let me know what your thoughts are, because I'm sure lots of you will have things I've never considered, just not come to mind. There's lots of suggestions, but think about trying to come up with something that is going to sell, because I think this is the thing that's holding back some of these manufacturers. They're so nervous about not wanting to produce things that won't sell, which is why my comments about the Gallet are valid, because I don't think that that's one of them. I don't think that was a good choice. And it's not. It's not just them. Others come up with things and you think, what, really, you know? I mean, well, I'll give you an example. ICM, okay, with the FW189, which is a lovely little kit, but how many are going to sell? Not sure. Not sure. Another one that's a bit obscure, you know. I'm trying to suggest things that will sell and will keep selling and will, you know, they'll recoup their investment cost and they'll get it back and they'll say, yes, that made us a few quid, you know. That's what we want. We want, you know, Airfix and these other manufacturers to be successful. We don't want to lose them. I mean, I've said Hornby are in a bit of trouble. I really hope we don't lose them, because we need them. We need them. And they've been so good when they produced a good kit in recent years, the Airfixers and the Tamiyas of this world especially. They've been absolutely unbelievably good, you know. So we can't, you know, we can't lose them. We don't. I want them to stop making things that nobody wants. I want them to build things that will sell and keep selling, and guarantee their future and success for all their employees, so they have a career into the future, and that they can grow into and become even more successful. So that's my thoughts today. Thank you very much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, and please give me your thoughts on what you think, because you'll have lots of ideas, I bet, things I've not thought of, and I will read every one and I will probably comment on most of them as well. So don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Hope to catch up with some of you at Telford very soon. In the meantime, thanks for all your time. Hope you thought it was interesting and worthwhile. I hope I didn't rant too much, and I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings, because I wasn't trying to do that. I just want to try and, you know, I want to try and communicate. There's some frustration out there, and I think that if that's listened to, things can really improve for Airfix and for Tamiya and one or two of these other companies as well. If they just listen to the market, listen to the heartbeat of the market, and you will actually be able to turn that into sales and profits for you guys to guarantee your future. Anyway, thanks very much. Hope to catch you all soon. If I don't see you at Telford, don't hesitate to drop me a comment. I'd love to read them all. And until next time, thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.